Hello, myself Prima representing Access Services Careers. New Zealand. New Zealand offers great opportunities to those students internationally to pursue their career and work thereafter. So, here I am with another FAQ of New Zealand student visa.
Can international students enter New Zealand in 2021?
A small number of international students, about 1,250, have been offered the chance to come into New Zealand in 2021 to complete their studies under an exception to current border restrictions. Realistically, it takes 5 or 6 months from making an offer to a student to being able to get that student here.
Is New Zealand accepting student visa applications?
New Zealand is currently not accepting visa applications from people outside of New Zealand. This measure is in place at least until February 2022.
Is New Zealand issuing student visa?
New Zealand is not currently processing offshore visa applications until February 2022 at the earliest. Therefore, it is unlikely that new international students will be able to enter New Zealand in time for on-campus studies in semester 1, that is February 2022.
Is there any interview for New Zealand student visa?
Indian students who want to visit New Zealand to pursue their high studies are required to apply for the New Zealand student visa. The visa interview is the last stage of the application process where one of the consular officers will ask questions to assess the applications.
Can New Zealanders travel overseas?
We currently advise that all New Zealanders do not travel overseas at this time due to the COVID-19 pandemic, associated health risks and widespread travel restrictions. It currently applies to all overseas destinations except for the Cook Islands.
Is it easy to get student visa for New Zealand?
To qualify for a student visa, you will need to be accepted for a course at an education institute approved by the Ministry of Education or the New Zealand Qualifications Authority. Prove you have enough money to live on while you are in New Zealand and a ticket out of New Zealand, or evidence that you have enough money to buy one.
Which is the best course to study in New Zealand?
The top courses for Indian students in New Zealand are animation, engineering, medicine, business studies, engineering, forestry, hospitality, IT and computer science, agriculture, etc.
How much is a New Zealand student visa?
The student visa application fees is as follows.
How can I PR in New Zealand after my studies?
You can apply for a visa to work in New Zealand for up to 3 years after you finish your study, if you have an acceptable qualification. A post-study work visa lasts for 1 to 3 years depending on the level of your qualification and where you studied.
How can I crack my New Zealand student visa interview?
Here are some tips on how to crack New Zealand student visa interview. First one, be punctual. Do your homework about the types of questions that may ask. Practice. Have a positive body language, etc.
How do I prepare for a New Zealand interview?
First of all, research the organization. Learn as much as you can about the organization you want to work for is very important. Get ready for the employer's questions. Get your questions and evidence ready. Look the part. Know what the interview is. Know what to expect at the interview. Get ready for the video interviews. Find out more.
Is gap acceptable for New Zealand study visa?
A student can apply for a visa to New Zealand even after a gap of 10 long years if he or she can show credible information about what he or she has been doing in the 10 years in terms of work experience, studies and skill set.
Can New Zealanders work in Australia?
Most New Zealand citizens can visit, live and work in Australia without applying for a tourist or work visa. New Zealand permanent residents need to apply for visas to Australia.
Is it easy to get PR in New Zealand?
New Zealand did offer PR easily to the students once, but now it is difficult to get. Before obtaining points, the immigrant should also fulfill some requirements which are basic when applying for PR. Some of the basic requirements for applying PR in New Zealand are the age of an immigrant should be less than 55 years.
How much does a student earn in New Zealand?
A student in Australia can earn up to $18.90 an hour, though you may earn more than this. You will also be paid for annual and public holidays and for rest breaks.
Which courses are eligible for PR in New Zealand?
There are no certain PR courses in New Zealand that you can study for getting permanent residency. International students can opt for any course, and once they graduate, they can apply for jobs and their study visa can be converted into a work visa.
Which is the easiest country to get student visa?
Easiest countries to get student visas are Canada, USA, UK, Australia, New Zealand.
What is the Level 7 study in New Zealand?
The Level 7 study program in New Zealand is 1-year graduate diploma program. Level 7 programs are highly skilled and specialized as it is equivalent to first year entry of master degree or 3 years bachelor degree. Level 7 programs have a variety of specializations and are offered by both universities and private institutions.
Can I study in New Zealand without IELTS?
If you are planning to study in New Zealand, IELTS is not a necessary requirement as you can offer alternatives like providing proof that you completed class 8 to class 12 with English as the medium of instruction in your home country or submit other language proficiency scores like TOEFL, PT, CAE, SR, etc.
How do I extend my student visa in New Zealand?
If you cannot renew your visa with your education provider, you can apply online. You usually find out within a month whether or not Immigration New Zealand has approved your application.
Is it easy to get PR in New Zealand after my studies?
For a student who has completed his studies from New Zealand, the first step towards granting of a PR is a 2-year post-study visa. Mark out words is a first step and not a short way to get the PR. This visa would allow you to hunt for a job and work in the country for 2 years initially.
Is there any interview for New Zealand student visa?
Indian students who want to visit New Zealand to pursue their higher studies are required to apply for the New Zealand student visa. The visa interview is the last stage of the application process where one of the consular officers will ask questions to assess the applications.
Is New Zealand cheap to study?
Of course. Undergraduate tuition fees is like, according to the official study in New Zealand website, international undergraduate students can expect to pay the New Zealand dollar, which is 22,000 to 30,000 per year, with higher fees for subjects such as medicine and veterinary science. Most bachelor's degrees take 3 years to complete. So, hope you all are very clear with the FAQs of New Zealand student visa. So, it's your time to choose New Zealand to pursue your high studies. And thank you for watching the video. Bye-bye.